We are back for another episode of the Disruptive Voices of the Pacific. We are on a series called Sex, Dating and Relationships. We have a resource coming out next year, but alongside that resource is this resource, the podcast, because not everyone likes to read, some like to listen. So thank you for those who love to tune in. And back by popular demand is Pastor Tiko. Thank you, Pastor Tiko. For those who didn't listen to last episode, maybe tell us a bit about yourself again.
Yeah, sure. So Tiko, married to Shelley. We've been married for 29 years. Yes, we've learned a lot about each other. We have two sons. They're 24 and 26. So yeah, having lived in New Zealand for about 27 years, been back home and just loving being part of what God is doing. But yeah, having great friends like Tish to come and help the landslide of the issues that we're facing in Fiji. So
no, it's good working together. And I've called you in today because you love young people. You just have such a heart, which is sometimes unusual for older pastors. Not that you're that old, but they kind of get promoted up to the real people. And why are you so passionate about young people?
I always go back to the 16-year-old me. Older people would call me a ratbag, but I was just so bored, and I brought up in church all my life. And while there would have been some great times, there was also just some struggles in church. And so when I knew, I think at a very young age, probably about 12 years old, that there was ministry, somewhere along the line, I said to God and to my nana level, who's my mum's older sister, I just said, but not like this. I wanna reach my friends. I wanna do it in such a way that my friends who are not in my church or with me in youth group or whatever can come. And so that's really been my kind of goals, to create an environment.
And you're doing it so well at Equippers Church. It's just, very enthusiastic and full of joy and love, and you've created a great space there. What is your hope? Because we know the statistics here in Fiji, huge pregnancy rates, sleeping around, HIV. What is your hope when it comes to relationships for young people?
Oh gosh, I think safety, just for people to be safe. But you can't have safety if you don't understand what you're getting safe from. There's so many, so much help that's coming into our country, and sometimes what it seems like it's information in one ear and out the other. We put on like a course or a conference, and everybody attends it because we love attending conferences. But when we look at the outcome of people's behavior and decision making, it doesn't match up. So while there's still an investment to bring safety in relationships, I'm often questioning where's the gap. So I do what I do because of the gap. Is as a pastor, as an older male in our culture, I have to do what I can to help the young people of today. The best way only I can do it. I can't be like anyone else and do what other people are doing. I just know how to gather people and do it that way. So,
No, I love that. And part of God's plan for young people too is healthy relationships. I mean, what we're currently seeing is not God's ideal. There's grace and there's redemption and restoration. But part of the reason why we're doing this is to get on the front foot to hopefully stop people from a lot of pain. And so today we're going to have a bit of a discussion around when you're in a dating relationship, how can you walk in such a way that is pure, that honours each other, sexually, physically, emotionally, not just to get to the altar without being pregnant. That's kind of been a big emphasis. I hear it over here, being a virgin. But you can not be pregnant and still have done all these other things. So we're going to have a bit of a discussion. How can you date in such a way that honours God, honours each other?
Yeah.
So when you're talking about this subject, you know, if a new couple come to you, they're 17, begin to date, what advice are you giving them along these lines?
Oh gosh, one thing we're trying to do is get into their lives.
Yeah.
So with the young man, I want to tap into who are your friends, who's influencing you, and because the influence adds to takes away from the relationship. So it's often just getting them aside and hearing their heart. What are their dreams? What are their hopes? And then we often ask, who's had input into your life? And more than often, those who haven't had input often stray away.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like understanding where they've come from, understanding who are the people that they respect in their lives. You'll soon get to find out if who's having the loudest say, and that often gives us an indication of how the relationship would be.
Yeah, and of course, a huge say in their life is social media, the movies they're watching, and so that is all high level, sexualized pornography, and that's just normal for this generation. So we're kind of coming in and saying, hey, that's not God's intention, and we've done some episodes on God's purpose for sex and why, and He's not the killjoy. It's to actually make it so it's better for us.
Yeah.
So what are some practical, when it comes down to the practicalities of walking in purity, what are you suggesting for them?
I think we have to understand that God created sex, and God's plan is for relationship at the right time. As a young kid growing up, I went to a boys' school, and a lot of the playground talk is, sexualized, and everything is just sexualized. So now as an adult, or even raising up my two sons, is understanding this is the language that young people often just throw around like it's, so the next best joke is sexualized, the next, idea of whatever is sexualized. So it's kind of like, how do we give them good language around even honoring the girl and honoring marriage, honoring sex as a gift from God, not just something that we flippantly, throw around. And, I've been in environments with even older men, when you're just by yourselves, like just some of the stuff, I'm just like, you're married, or can you hear yourself? And so no wonder the young people, think, oh, but we've heard the older guys talking about it, so it must be okay. You're not having sex, you're just talking about it, but still, that stuff plays into behavior.
Yeah, absolutely. So quite often young people will ask what they do in Australia, how far is too far? Like, what can we get away with while we're dating before we cross that line and, what do you suggest when it comes to physical interactions?
Yeah, what's okay? Yeah, it's I've got sons, so the way I've trained the sons is, if time with her is time with us as a family. There's no isolated time away. We try and we highlight the issues of what could happen. So often, going to the movies, we'll run through scenarios with the boys. What happens when? What happens if? What are you going to do? So not that we're going to say, this is how you should act. We're equipping them. We're telling them, this stuff will happen, so what are you going to do in response to that? I know that I didn't necessarily have that chat with my dad, because in a culture like this, it wasn't something we're talking about. But now that I know better, I want to make sure that young people around me know that there's traps all around. So how far is too far? Gosh, it's just too far when you're stepping over a mark, when you know that's too far. Touching, gosh, like, do we just kiss on the lips? Do we kiss on the neck? Like, it just takes you further. Do you know when enough is enough? Have you talked about, but if there's something that you are lacking and you're looking for affection, that's when our young people, because love is not displayed safely in most environments, at church or even at home, so they don't see any boundaries.
No.
So when you don't know where the boundaries are, you're just going to keep going. Is pregnancy a boundary? You know, like, oops.
Yeah.
So we like to talk about where the boundaries are.
Yeah. I mean, and again, we're not here to shame or condemn anybody at all. That's so important that you don't hear that. But also we know that there's just been so many couples that are sleeping around inside the church, outside the church. So why should they be different? Like, you know, when their parents have done it or their cousins, why?
You know, the earlier chat we had was just talking about self-respect. If you don't respect yourself, then you're not going to, anyone else that comes in, because particularly in as a male, if you're sexualized, you're after one thing, you know, and guys will go to any extreme to get the one thing that they're looking for. They will buy you gifts. They will go get you flowers. They will say all the sweet nothings that you're wanting to hear. If I had a daughter, I would like to model to her what the guy that she needs to be looking at needs to be. A lot of our parents don't talk to their kids about expectations and all those things. So kids are just looking, living, breathing, you should be good enough. Or you got muscles, you know, like red flag. You know, understanding what the red flags are. What are some things that you should avoid? You know, I often say to even our young adults and youth at church is, do they love Jesus? Because if they're passionate about Jesus, then in discipleship, there's some certain things that you know are, you know, stop banks. Because if you don't have banks, your life just becomes a swamp. And so bad things breed in the swamp, you know?
So, I mean, loving Jesus and going to church can be two very different things. In Fiji, in Australia, generally, if you're going to church, you do have some type of love. But over here, because girls are like, well, he goes to this church, but how do you actually know if he loves Jesus?
Well, spirit-filled, you know, you're displaying the fruits of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, you know, self-control. So that should be every girl's checklist. Actually, every relationship. Let's have a checklist.
Yes.
You know, before we date, I want to see these things displayed in your life because you're aware of the Spirit of God living in you. Then these things will come up. Yeah, you'll have those days where you kind of fly off the handle or you jump back to your default, but you're always coming back because the Holy Spirit guides you and leads you. You know, how much of the Bible is he living? Not just talking about, because we can spit some scriptures and blah, 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 blah. But you can use that to your own benefit, you know. And I'm just all about equipping young people to know what's fake, what's real. And while they can see it in other people's relationships, often they can't see it in their own relationship. So,
it's fascinating, isn't it? And that's love is blind. And so again, part of, you know, walking in purity and honour and respect for each other. How important it is that we have other people just going, "Come on, mate." But do we actually listen to them when they do that? Also,
I try to.
You do, but
well, that's the lessons that I've learned, right? I was like, oh my gosh, who are the voices in their lives? So I'll say to our young girls particularly, I'll be the bad guy. I will soon tell you. So if you get a boyfriend and your parents have given you permission, say, I just want you to meet my pastor. So I will quickly say to them, has this young man been raised right? You know, did he shake my hand, look me in the eye? You know, is he caring? Is he often, you know, some Fijian boys, we're often like, you know, there's a term that we use in It's Okay language, you know, it's kind of like, are you legit? And so I want to look them in the eye and say, hey, I'm watching. And you'll have to answer to this if anything goes wrong. So I think we could, and we're not like, it's not scare tactics, it's not saying, so just, you know, her parents and her church community, or his parents and his church community have raised a young man. You're not just going to come in and have your way with them. You have to deal with us.
Yes, so important. If he doesn't, let's just pick on the he, if he doesn't want to come and meet the pastor or the parents, is that a red flag?
Absolutely. Yep. So I'll just give a recommendation to the girl and just say, listen, this is the wisdom based on experiences. Here's the information we're giving you. It's now your choice. And it's not an ultimatum. It's like, well, if you choose to go with him, then that's it. It's kind of like you understand the grace of God that, you know, someone will make a mistake and will need to come back home. So it's often going, we need to let you know that there's always a way back. But the way back is going to be an ordered, you know, there's going to be some things that we'll need to put in place so we don't repeat it.
In a previous episode that I did with you, you talked, actually it was your number one point with developing healthy relationships was communication. Just can't have a relationship without communicating. Do you communicate, or even when you were dating Shelley, did you have upfront communications about the physical aspects of you did, and what did that look like?
You never, you know, it's kind of like Shelley's just like, we never chat in the bedroom. If you come to my house, so Shelley was flatting at the time, if you come to my house, you bring your best friend. So just some clear boundaries. And I never really sort of, you know, like often Fijian kids would be like, oh, get your girlfriend, walk down the street, sit in the bushes somewhere where no one else can, you know, it's like, no, sit out in the open, go to a cafe. You can make yourself accountable that way, is just having some clear, the parable where Jesus talks about building your house on the rock and not on the sand, because the rain will come, storms will come. So it's often like the time to build your house is when the sun is shining. So when your relationship, you're both thinking soundly, put the guidelines there. Not when he's trying to put his hand on you. That's not when you put the stoppers up. Like he's got to know before you get to that point where the stop mark is. You know, I think that's what helped us, is that we both came into an agreement. Oh, okay, because she was, you know, she was very clear on the guidelines and her boundaries. I had to sign up to that and go, yep, okay. I agree.
Would you have had them if she didn't?
Probably not, to be honest. Probably not, because it was kind of like, but you're the girl of my dreams. We are going to get married eventually. Nah, she's like, no. Yeah.
Which again shows you she's a good woman.
Yeah.
That's a self-respect.
Yeah,
really.
Absolutely.
Self-respect. Was it a conversation that you had to have regularly? Like, were you reassessing? Or
absolutely. Because
did you crash through those boundaries every now and then?
Every now and then, yeah. And it's often she would just remind me. She said, hey, you know, remember we talked about this. This is our agreement. You know, and I'm just like, oh, I'm sorry. She's like, no. It won't happen again. You know? So I'm just like, yeah, okay. So that was huge for me. And so now I talk like this because as a couple, we've decided on this. We help young couples who are preparing to get married. It's called a Prepare and Enrich program. And often we talk about your family of origin, where you've come from. What did you observe? And what do you want to bring into your marriage or into your relationship? And what do you want to leave behind? So it's often kind of forging a way of, no, that happened in our parents' relationship. Let's take the good things, but let's keep, you know, let's keep aside the things that we don't want. So we're forming our own. And you could do that from a dating relationship. Yeah.
And I think this topic, the discussion about boundaries, is so important for anybody, but even more in a nation where so many have been abused.
Yeah.
Male and female. So you've got no idea what you're triggering in that woman or man just by taking for granted. Because quite often we think dating is permission. I own their body now.
That's right.
But it can be really quite a minefield, and especially if we haven't got the healing that we need, or we're rebounding from a relationship. So these things are really important.
I was just going to add, Tisha, culturally as well. Like older brothers or brothers of the girl take on this role as I am your protector, and sometimes they overstep the mark. And so it's kind of like equipping our young girls to be able to say to the brothers, hey, like, you got to give me permission to speak to you when you're with a girl as well.
Yeah.
It's often just like, because all boys know what other boys want to do to your sister.
Yeah.
So it's often, well, other girls know what other boys want to do, you know, like other girls want to do to your brother. So it's often letting the conversation go between the brother and sister relationship. And everything has got to be discussed. It's not just a boy issue or a girl issue.
Yeah.
We bring it up.
I heard just as we finished talking to a young woman this week, talking about the question they ask each other. She's not, I don't know, she's a Christian, but she hears it around her school. What's your body count? She said it's a big question among girls. I know guys are having competitions around this issue, but what's your body count in that? In other words, how many people have you slept with?
Yeah.
So I feel like there is a greater rise in
Yeah.
women being promiscuous
Yeah.
and going after the guys as well.
Yeah.
How do guys, how do guys stand up to, because usually we're like, no, it's the men hunting the girls, but I'm seeing a change, in this new empowerment.
Yeah.
How do guys stand up to that behaviour when there might be another number?
Yeah, and I think, I think if there's lack and you're looking for love and attention that leads to affection, what I'm saying is, even older guys, is everybody just wants someone to notice them. This in the era of social media and everything's exposed on, there's still this element of, can I share a funny story?
Yeah.
Probably a couple of years ago, I was at one of the hotels in Suva, sitting with my friends, and there was this lady who just walked past, and she, just said, hi to the group that we were with, and I was with one of the guys from church, and anyway, he introduced me, oh, this is my dad, as in spiritual father, and so she kind of passed a comment like, oh, your dad's pretty cool, and so my head kind of swelled a little bit. I went home and I said to my wife, I said, hey, someone noticed me today. And she's like, what do you want me to do about it? I'm just like, people notice me all the time. But it's kind of like, what are you looking for when someone gives you a compliment or whatever? Yeah. It's kind of like, if there's lack, you're going to grab that thing like a sponge.
Yeah.
But if you're set, if you're good, it's just going to be like, hey, thanks,
yeah.
and move on. So it's often going, what are you looking for when you leave the house? What are you looking for when you go to school?
Yeah.
What are you wanting? Because if your identity is found in Christ, then that's all you need. What people say is just they're noticing what God's done in your life, but it's not meant to be a...
Brilliant. So good. We're whole beings, and so walking in purity doesn't just start the day you start dating Johnny. It's something that you've built within who you are. Like Shelley, when she starts, she knows her boundaries, and but then, you had to put things in place. So thank you again. We hope this is all about freedom. It's about living the big plan that God has for your life, not about being prudes or boring or anything. Unfortunately, the world has sold us a big lie. Sexual freedom's freedom. No, it's caused more harm, destruction than ever before. So thank you, Pastor Tiko, and keep up your amazing work with young people across this nation.
Thanks.